or Facebook video. How do you decide how many ads we show?
Do you mean like where we show the ads and things like that, like the number of ads or something?
No, I actually mean the ratio between minutes of ads versus minutes of content.
Oh, that's very interesting. I see. So before we even get started, let's make sure we think about the structure for this. And here's what I'm thinking. First, I want to really think clearly about what the trade-off involves. What are we getting on one side and what are we getting on the other side? Second, I want to think about the sort of like core objective function we're going to look at. And then third, I want to think of like broadly what I'll call optimizations. Once we kind of got the core thing right, how can we sort of get even better at this?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anything else you'd add here? It seems reasonable.
That's a great start. If we need to add anything, I'll pipe up.
Cool. Sounds good. So trade-off. Here, basically, one way that's helpful for me to think about this is to think in extremes. You know, what if we had a world where, you know, we just had ads everywhere, 100% ads? You know, obviously we'd make money, but our users would leave us, probably, right? And on the other side, if we had no ads, then, you know, we'd make no money, but presumably our users would use the product a little more. So the trade-off is basically one of money versus users or, you know, engagement or sort of time on site or something like that. Let's call that engagement. And, you know, before we go any further, just sort of thinking about this and as we think about the objective function, the first thing that comes to mind is this. We can basically express in units of money, right? Like this engagement, the whole point we care about is engagement, is that in the future we can use that to convert that into money.
Okay.
So as I'm thinking about that, the thing I'm starting to realize is, you know, of course we can make money in the short term by plastering ads everywhere. But if we do that, we're going to lose future engagement, which is equivalent to saying lose future money. So maybe a better way to think about this is sort of like short term versus long term money. And this line of thinking kind of begets what seems to me like a really good objective function for unifying these two camps, which is long-term revenue. What I'm thinking is, to figure out what the right ratio is, we could run A/B tests and, you know, show 1 to 5 minutes ratio of ads or 1 to 10 and try different levels. And you know, there'll basically be a curve like this, where this is revenue, long-term revenue, and ratio. You know, let's call this. So eventually, you know, if we go ham on the ads, then in the long term, you know, call this like 6 months or a year or however long we run this experiment for. Then we're going to lose a lot of engagement and lose a lot of money. And same with, you know, not running very, very much ads. And what we're trying to basically get is to this spot on the curve. So that's how I think about this. I would run, you know, like say a 6 months A/B test. My guess is it probably won't take nearly as long and things will kind of plateau. My guess is like 6 to 8 weeks might be enough. But regardless, let's run, you know, like a 6 month A/B test with a bunch of different values along this curve. My guess is it'll look something like this, and then we'll pick the thing that maximizes long-term revenue as the right trade-off between money and engagement.
Okay, that really makes sense.
So thinking a bit deeper about this framework, I think this is kind of the fundamentals. We really got the fundamentals right. But it strikes me that we can kind of get even cleverer. And I mean, we mentioned this at the beginning, but optimizations. There's probably a lot of sort of axes by which this ratio changes. Like, for like type of content, maybe long form content, short form content, gaming content, music videos, blah, blah, blah. Maybe the tolerance for the amount of ads is very different.
How do you find out what the tolerance is?
Right, so what I would propose is running the kind of same framework we did, but we can run a variant for different types of content, and then maybe we pick a different ratio for a certain type of content versus another kind, or lenta content, or maybe even geo, like certain places.
That makes sense. Okay.
And we can go ham on these lists, even if we're open to that by user attributes, like maybe new users versus old have a different tolerance.
Sure.
Or users have a lot of friends, or users a certain geo. I guess we mentioned that here. Or a particular kind of browser, or OS, or even like ISP. Even who knows? Like maybe slow videos or internet speed, or who knows? You might imagine a world in which we have this full automated system that's like kind of continuously running this experiment against a huge array of features and constantly tuning what the right parameters is for all this stuff, and kind of really getting us the best bang for a buck in terms of optimizing this.
Sure, that's a good way to look at it.
So this is kind of how I think about it. The core was sort of getting the structure down at the beginning. These are kind of just nice to have, but that's really how I think about this decision if I were the product manager.
It's extremely helpful. Thank you so much.
This course is brought to you by Candor, helping tech professionals get paid fairly.